Welcome. I am your host and guide, Alexis Marie Chute. Today, we are going to explore the inside of the Red Brick School and see what it's used for now and learn what it's been used for over time.
The school used this upstairs space as a changing area, a storage space, a student infirmary. Later, it was used as a clerical lab when they purchased 5 typewriters in 1937. The school operated until 1949, and then unfortunately, the whole building fell into disregard and disrepair. It stayed like that for almost a decade before being purchased by the Heritage Agricultural Society in 1974. It was then renovated to become a historical site in 1983. This room was the site of archives and collections and photo records, but that did change over the time, and now you can find those kinds of documents in the Perk building, but still operated by the Red Brick Common. Through these records and archives, we can read about the history of the building, the school, and local agricultural practices, as well as seeing photographs of the buildings in the neighborhood throughout history. There's a dedicated display to Cornelia Wood. She donated her large collection of more than 100 hats to the archives. She is so much more than the hat lady. She was a teacher, a community leader, an artist, a horse rider, and also the mayor of the town.
My name is Lucille Frost. I am the collections curator here at Red Brick Common in the museum. I work to make our collections accessible through in-house exhibits and through our digital platforms. This is the Cornelia Wood collection. Cornelia was one of the first teachers to come to Stony Plain. She came and taught elementary school and then settled here and married in 1912, 1913, I believe. She ended up being really influential in our community as both an educator as well as a politician. She would end up representing the community of Stony Plain for a time, and she was known as the lady with the hats. She had many, many hats, figuratively and literally. We have her hat collection here that we make accessible, and we sometimes also do living projects with her collection and make them something that people can interact with and touch. Cornelia had a hat for every occasion. When the museum was built here, these were offices that were used for the museum curator and the archives staff. They did the first ever digital processing of our records and collections here. We've moved that and expanded our holdings, and so we have a space now that we do that work with in another building, but this is where it started. So some of mostly the photograph collections were kept in this building here and then digitized here, and the computers that house those were kept here. We moved them over about 5 years ago over to our Perk building. We have a collection of antique teacups that represent both the early pioneer period and the period of the museum's founding. So we have even, I think, some teacups that have celebrated the wedding of Prince Charles and Princess Diana. Tea service was something that was very important to some of the European families that settled here, a part of the culture they brought over from their homeland, and we carried it through with our collection.
This library was named after Alberta's flower, the wild rose. When this building functioned as a school, this was often the teacher's lounge. It's a pretty nice place to relax, if you ask me. On these gorgeous period bookcases, many collected and donated books are on display, capturing the beautiful history of the town, the region, and the life practices from over the last 100+ years. Books are a great example of the archive that has been collected by the Red Brick Common over the last 50 years. We are in the Wild Rose Library. I'm here with Lucille.
It is a library that was built when the museum was founded to house some of the textbooks and the book collections that we started to accumulate as we formed the museum. I'm a bookworm, so I love this space. I love to sit down, curl up with a book, and I also love to just see all of the kinds of things that our community members were interested in reading about and learning about through time. It's a real insight into early Canadian literature.
So I see, like, behind you, there's bound copies of newspapers. I see a book by Cornelia Wood, her memories. There are so many interesting things. Can you tell us about this space, this library space?
Yes, so this is where we house our collections of heritage books. Most of them on this side over here that you can see just sitting behind you are early textbooks that you would have found in high schools throughout Canada and primarily in Stony Plain and in the Alberta region. They represent curriculum from the early foundations of Stony Plain around the late 1890s, all the way up to about 1960. We have quite a few books, so you can see all the things that Canadians were learning about in school in this area here. And then in some of our other spaces, it's more specific historical texts that speak about the history of our town or towns close to us. And then here we have pieces that are really specific to the museum and to this community. So we have our bound versions of the Stony Plain Reporter here. And we have some Canadian literary history here and magazine publications.
So who can access this space? Can anybody come?
Anybody. This is a public library, so you are able to come and access the books. You are not able to take them out, unfortunately.
So this one's called the People's Home Library. I'm really curious to see what year this was made. If it's got a date. It says copyright 1910.
This is a great example of the way that people handled information before the internet, right? You couldn't just go out and Google something. You needed that one source in your home to go to. Later in Canadian history, there was the age of the encyclopedia. We have some of them down here. So you would buy encyclopedia sets, sometimes only one book at a time, as you could afford it, or you would buy a subscription and they would mail one out to you every month or every few months. So we have some great encyclopedias here, but before encyclopedias were popular, we had kind of one-stop shop books like this, where it would compile all the information of a certain genre or interest group, or try and compile all the information about everything all together in one place.
Well, I'm looking here and I see San Diego orange marmalade, so recipes.
Yep.
And then here there's also information if you have a chronic sore throat. So it definitely is...
It's the book of everything.
It's the book of everything. Thrush, sunstroke, oh my goodness, and photographs.
Yeah.
Vegetables,
but I mean,
stuffed eggplant recipe.
If we stop and kind of use our imaginations for a moment, we imagine how we would go and explore a new unknown land. If we didn't have our cell phones or internet access, I don't know, what book would we bring? I don't know what book I would, if I had to bring one book, what book I would bring. I would want one like this.
I would want to bring my whole library.
Yeah.
But, well, and something that even, I just flipped to a part that says a chapter for married women. I think it'd be really interesting to, learn and read about the ways that we view gender and different roles. Parenting, so many different things. I think it would be a really fascinating study to look at some kind of, it's almost like you can really appreciate the social history when you're flipping through a book like this.
These books here are a part of that process. They say, they tell a story about how our values are different from our American neighbors, how our values changed when we came and settled in this place, from the books that we carried with us from our forefathers to the books that we produced once we got here. It's really interesting. I'm sure that must be fascinating to you as a publisher and an author.
Oh my gosh, totally. I just feel like I would love to spend hours in this space. And even though you can't bring a book out, this is a really comfy chair, and I can see spending many hours sitting here and learning.
We have a desk space, so if you have a research project, you can come in, set up, make yourself comfortable.